What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Beneath the Hood, back 2 weeks later as promised. And tonight I'm joined by who else but Bubba. Bubba, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited that we've got a more normal schedule for these podcasts now. And we've got some fun changes. I shouldn't say changes, fun additions that we're making to the podcast. And today is one of those additions. So we're excited to hop into some really nerdy Assassin's Creed stuff with you guys today.
Yeah, really nerdy, really gritty, really historical.
Yes.
To give you a little sneak peek.
I've got my McFlurry here ready to snack on. Not a sponsor.
I'm so jealous.
Not an
What do you got?
M&Ms?
Are you an M&Ms man?
I would have gotten that. I forgot. I haven't had a McFlurry in like 20 years. But my wife's like, "Can you?" And we got the kids down, and she's like, "Can you run to McDonald's and get me something?" I'm like still hungry after dinner. I'm like, "Oh yeah." So I ran there and was like, "I'm gonna get myself a sweet treat." So I just got the Oreo one. That's what I saw on the menu. But yeah, I freaking love mini M&Ms. And it wasn't until he was making it there, I was like, "They have freaking M&Ms." I forgot about that. Yeah, otherwise I would have done.
Next time.
Cheers.
Yeah, McFlurry's hit. Oh, I'm so jealous right now. It's too late for me to mac on a McFlurry, but
I'll share with you.
Well, Bubba, would you like to break down what we're giving the people tonight?
So one thing that we want to get into more and more is the history side of Assassin's Creed. If you guys are anything like us, a big reason why you love the Assassin's Creed franchise is not just the gameplay, it's not just the stealth or the parkour, it's really the history. That is one big element that sets Assassin's Creed games apart from other video games, other RPGs, is it's diving into history with a pretty realistic approach, and they do add a layer of frosting of fantasy when it comes to obviously Isu and the Animus and things like that, and also making it kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Not fantasy's not the right word, but
science fiction?
Kind of like a rose-colored lens when you're looking through into the past, where how they depict Greece in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it's very bright and happy and perfect, right? It's like exactly what you would want Greece to be rather than exactly what it was, right?
Yes.
And so
yes, exactly.
It's kind of like a golden version of, and same with Egypt, right? Like Egypt wasn't really that clean and the oases and things like that, but it's like, this is kind of like a rose-colored lens, which is kind of code for, what I mean by that is you're looking back, through that lens as if it was better than it really was. And so,
right.
But they still do try to keep a lot of historical accuracy, specifically with who is in the video game that you interact with. So today, in the future, we will be going more into the history element of Assassin's Creed and talking more about fun, whether it's fun facts or whether it's diving into a single video game into the history and the politics and, the power dynamic of certain characters or events at this time to give you more context into what's going on when you hop in the game. But today specifically, we kind of wanted to start things off with talking about characters in history. So actual historical, prevalent people that existed in those time periods for real in real life that are in the game and that have a presence in the various games, which there's a lot. You can think of a lot off the top of your head. Both Johnny and I have come with 5 people in history that are in the Assassin's Creed games, and we are going to be talking about essentially the differences between the Assassin's Creed version of this historical person and which one did I say first? The Assassin's Creed version? The Assassin's Creed version versus the real life version. That's what we're talking about today. And we found that there's a lot of differences, but there's also a lot of really awesome similarities, which is no, that is historically accurate. So there may be some that you're kind of familiar with, and I'm sure that there are a lot of others that you had no idea about. Okay, well, Johnny, my first person I want to talk about for characters that exist in Assassin's Creed and in real life, of course, is the GOAT of GOATs, Leonardo da Vinci. You cannot have an episode about characters in history in Assassin's Creed without this guy. He is the GOAT. He's probably the first, when I was playing the Assassin's Creed games initially, I knew he was like the only person that I knew was real in real life. Like I thought kind of everybody else was made up. I didn't realize just how many people were actually real. Which, by the way, in Assassin's Creed 2, it's basically everybody. Like everybody is real except for you. It's kind of crazy. But I want to talk about the differences between him in the game and him in real life. So to kind of go over some highlights, first of all, this is what he looks like in the game. Can you see this, Johnny?
Yes.
Not in the game. This is what he looks like in real life. So, pretty different, I'd say. You've got the long hair, you got the beard, but the beard's not nearly long enough. I mean, look at this guy's beard. It's beautiful.
That's a lot of hair.
It's a lot of hair. But some things that I want to kind of talk about. First and foremost, this guy was an inventor. First and foremost, he was an inventor. They depict that very well in the Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood. And some things that he invented, he actually did come up with the concept of a tank, which is so cool. So in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, you actually drive that tank and shoot a bunch of Templars in that tank. This was always a concept. This was never actually created. However, the concept, it was a blueprint. Like, it was very detailed. However, modern engineers, when they reviewed those blueprints, they actually found a huge flaw in the tank, that the way that the gears were ratioed and everything, it actually wouldn't move. It was immobile. And historians speculate that he actually did that on purpose, because in real life, he was actually the war engineer, or like the military engineer for Cesare Borgia. So again, Cesare Borgia, very real person. And in Brotherhood, it kind of depicts him as being almost like enslaved, where it's like he's forced to be an engineer for the Borgias to design weapons of war for them. In reality, that was not forced. He wasn't like a slave or anything like that. But he actually was a military engineer for Cesare Borgia. So when he designed this tank, historians believe that flaw that they found, where the tank would actually be immobile, if you actually try to make it in real life, they think that he did that on purpose. So then they couldn't take advantage of that machine because he knew how deadly it was. So super cool. I mean, I think that's cool. The other thing that's big in the game, of course, is the flying machine, the winged man. Ooh. So in Assassin's Creed 2, right, you fly over the bonfires in the winged machine. He designed this. Of course, this would have no real, this would not actually fly in real life, right? But he did actually design this flying machine. He never knew if it worked or not, and they never tested it. I don't believe that they ever built one in real life, but he designed it. However, there were other designs that he had made that actually did function. And so he made a theoretical, wingsuit, which is like the squirrel suits that exist today, that the gliders that you see, stuntmen do. He designed one of those, and he, explained how it would work, and that actually would work in real life. The other one, what was the other one that he did? He created, this isn't in the game, but he created a new instrument. It's called a viola organista. It's basically like a piano, but when you press a key, there's like a bow that goes over the string. It's like a constant moving bow that plays. So it's almost like a cello or like a violin, but it's a piano. It's super cool. But that mainly cool. He actually, he was a military engineer for the Borgias. He made like a whole city layout for Cesare Borgia. Which one was it? It was the city of Imola. And so, if I'm saying that right, I might not be, but it was for Cesare. In 1502, he made it. He made this huge city map that was the design of the new city and all the stuff, and they actually used it. And so, super cool. But his connection with Cesare Borgia is a little bit different. But he really was, a brilliant designer, a brilliant engineer. He made awesome inventions. One of which we still use today was for like looms. I think they're called looms. What are they called? It's like for sewing.
Yeah, looms. Yes, a big loom. It's like how do you mass produce like sewing, like fabrics and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So it's
At
basically
a
like
mill.
the loom that the thread like loops around. He created a machine that automatically threads those. We still use that technology today, which is so cool. Another one is a parachute. He was the first person to design a parachute, and I think somebody, it looks like it says in 2000, actually created off of his sketches, created his exact parachute design, and it worked. So,
Wow.
someone said that it was actually, they reported a smoother descent than modern versions, which is really cool. So,
Oh my
really cool.
God.
So yeah, this guy, it was mostly
So he
true.
was legit.
For the most part, right? The relationship with the Cesare Borgia is a little bit different. Obviously, he
That is
wasn't
cool though.
an assassin making, cool technology for assassins or anything like that. But other than that, he was. The one big difference was they show that he moved away from Florence to go to Venice, when really he didn't go to Venice. He went to some other town, but it was like. I can't remember where it is. But anyways,
Still.
he never moved. He never lived in Venice. That was like the only other big difference, which is not a big difference. They just, for the sake of the game, they just like brought him to Venice rather than moving to was it Naples or something like that? I don't remember, but yeah, really cool. So those are the main differences with Leonardo da Vinci.
That is really cool. And it is fascinating how Ubisoft tends to, it's the best part of these games, the way that they can kind of connect history and kind of how you're saying at the beginning with like rose-tinted glasses, where you're like, did he have all these exact relationships? No. But are you going to learn a lot that's true about these people? Yes. And this is all taken from real stuff, like the tank, the flying machine, his relationship with the Borgias. Like, it is really, really cool the way they write these stories. And it's one of my favorite parts of these games always. So I'm so glad you brought him up because, honestly, mine. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say the tank thing specifically, I was so happy that was real, because one big criticisms that people have about Assassin's Creed is like, oh, really? You think it's historically accurate? You really think Ezio drove a tank, Leonardo da Vinci's tank through blah, blah, blah? But it's like, no, guys, he actually made that. Like, he actually made the freaking tank. It just was never created in real life and used in that way, of course. But that wasn't a stretch. Like, that wasn't some crazy mythological, mystical thing. It was like, no, he actually designed a tank that looked like that he drove. So super cool. I love to learn that specifically, because people not Assassin's Creed fans will often use that as like, oh, really? You think it's accurate? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, well, that has more bearing than you think. Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
It is cool. I mean, it feels like whenever you're playing through these games and you do interact with these characters, these real people, this is when it feels like they're in their bag, kind of. Like the developers are actually having so much fun. Like they're talking to, you can see them talking to each other, being like, how can we make like Charles Darwin work with Thomas Edison? Like, how can this be? Did they ever speak with each other? Were they even alive at the same time? Who knows? But that's the fun part. If you're too critical about it, like the tank, like if they were even around at the same time, it sucks the fun out of a lot of this. As like a huge history nerd, this is the most fun part. And you can tell they're history nerds as well, because they do such a good job with it usually. And that's actually a theme I saw when I was doing my quick little research here about my 5 people. The common theme was that they really represented them pretty well, even better than a lot of other popular media usually has. So the way I kind of structured my 5 people, they're a lot more niche. I'm glad you're doing like Leonardo and like the big ones that people will care about, because mine are a little more like handpicked to be. I really like to see why Ubisoft chose this person and like the meaning behind them and how they interact with the morality of the situation and the morality of the creed and Templars versus Assassins, and how Ubisoft handpicked somebody from history and tried to fit them into this like Templar versus Assassin narrative. So my first one, funny I mentioned Templars and Assassins, my first one's from Odyssey. So before Templars, before Assassins, right? My first one is Cleon of Athens. So I don't know if you remember, but one of the main story arcs was in Athens. There was a big political head-to-head going among the Athenians, right? Of course, there's the Peloponnesian War going on this whole time, and it's between the Spartans and Athenians, but the actual political state of Athens was very much kind of in limbo, and a lot of that was because of Pericles. And Pericles, in the game, and as well as in real life, was much more of a kind of a pacifist and was trying to preach peace. Pericles dies, and he dies in the game as well, and who's there left? The people look to, and they find Cleon. So who was Cleon in real life? He was not an aristocrat.
Oh, really?
Yes, he was just a skilled public speaker. He was extremely popular with the lower class. He was aggressively pro-war against Sparta, which is directly opposed from Pericles. So it's really cool that it's not really cool. I shouldn't say it like that. He sounds a lot like a certain German man in World War II. A lot of the things he says, so a big part of what he believed in was attacking elites, framing compromise as weaknesses, and he was very aggressive. He was very popular, which is the odd part. When you have such a skilled public speaker, you can actually weaponize democracy, which is exactly what he did in Athens at the time. He simply, through being persuasive and strong and patriotic and riling up the people, convinced them to go to war with Sparta, and which was something that was hotly contested in Athens at the time. It's the only really prolific democracy in the world at the time where you would listen to the people and all this stuff. And he was very quickly, in the very first democracy in the world in history, I believe, or one of them, he was very quickly turned to weaponize this democracy to get what he wanted, which is really, really interesting. So that's really who he was. So what this says here is he wasn't necessarily evil, as he is portrayed in the game. He's not like a terrible person, but what's that?
Shits or anything like that.
Say that one more time. So sorry.
He's not a Templar.
No, well, he's not a Templar. However, he uses why I chose him, because I think he's interesting, is he uses freedom to control. So he's using democracy, which is usually a nice sign of freedom, but he's using that in an attempt to control people, to get what he wants, to make profits off the war, which is a fascinating way to write a Templar, in my opinion, which for all intents and purposes in this game he is. So to compare him to, in the game versus how he is in real life, he was a populist politician in both. He was anti-elite in both. He had a pro-war stance, very extreme in real life, and more of it's his more sole character trait in Odyssey. That's who he is entirely. He's very ruthless in both real life, documented, and in Odyssey that represented him that way. Of course, he's not part of the cult of Cosmos. He wasn't part of a cult or anything like that. Nothing more nefarious behind the scenes, in which you realize the cult of Cosmos in Assassin's Creed Odyssey is profiting greatly from this war. He was more doing it just for his own personal benefit, basically, and to fight the elites and all this other stuff. In real life, they say he wasn't necessarily as manipulative, but in the game, he's seen as very sneaky and evil. Yes, where the game takes liberties, he was not part of a cult. He did fight and die in battle, and his motives may have been sincerely patriotic, like I was saying. Not he was trying to rile up the people to fight the elites, whereas in the game they more paint it as getting money and, for the cult and things like that. So, and it's interesting the way that it's broken down. Assassins value individual freedom, Templars and the cult value control through fear, and Cleon weaponizes freedom into gaining control, which is really, really a cool way to write a Templar, like I said. So everything's accurate, from his popularism, warmongering. He hated the elites. That's all really true in real life. That's who he was. That's what he stood for. That's what he kind of made his platform out of, and how he gained popularity. Like I said, it sounds very similar, if you're a history nerd, to a certain guy in Germany who maybe I shouldn't say the name of. I don't know if that would get flagged or something like that. But he was just a really talented speaker who was very passionate and was able to gain all this popularity seemingly out of nowhere just with his voice. So I think it's fascinating. But his pure villainy, his evilness was greatly exaggerated in the game, as he was a very popular political figure. But most of it is true. And I think his take and Ubisoft's take on him using kind of weaponizing freedom, which is an assassin trait, to gain control, which is a Templar trait, I thought that was super cool. So
yeah, that is very cool. Well, and if you think about it, less than 100 years, so frankly just a few decades before that event was the battle with the Persians and the Spartans and the 300, and they, fended off the Persians. And there were a lot of, there were some, I don't know if they're Athenians, but specifically in, what was that town called that was like hit by the plague?
Oh God, his home place. He's from
yeah, that place.
the island. Yes, I forget it.
I'm forgetting what it's called, but yeah, they depict it in the movie Hercules as well, and they joke about like, oh well, before the first plague there was the other plague, and there's the tornado of dust and all this stuff, and yeah, they kind of got cooked, and the people thought that they were cursed because they supported the Persian invasion, and betrayed the people of Greece. But yeah, less than 100 years before, they were great allies with Sparta, and so to go to essentially civil war was crazy. Yeah. And he was a very good public speaker to be able to convince the populace of something like that. And yeah, having that parallel or drawing that line that really doesn't exist of him being a part of the cult of Cosmos, of course, that makes sense. It's like, yeah, this guy totally would be.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And weaponizing freedom, I love that. That's such a cool thing. I didn't even think about that in the game. There's some, in Odyssey specifically, there are some cutscenes that I struggle to, because all the cutscenes are the same for the most part, unless it's quite literally like a cinematic.
Right.
But,
yes.
And they're all beautifully done, even just the non-cinematic cutscenes. But there's so many of them that I'm like, is this one that I should care about, or is this one that I shouldn't? Like, doesn't matter, because there's a lot.
Right.
There's so many cutscenes that it's like, okay, like, it's not adding that much to the story or to the arc or anything like that. But then there's others that are like, oh yeah, you want to recognize this later. Who's the guy that you also name drop? Or I don't know if you talked about him yet. The scene in the warehouse, the docks, that one Spartan shows up and fights.
The Spartan soldier
with you.
Yes.
Yeah. What's his name?
Yes, I forget his name. Something very.
Dude,
Greek,
he's a badass. But we're not talking about him today. But again, same thing. When he dies from your brother, or I say your brother, from either Alexios or Cassandra.
That's the worst death in any Assassin's Creed. That's brutal.
100%. Dude, it took me so off guard. I was like, wait, what? Like that.
They show him fighting, and then he gets his head stabbed through, and then he gets carried by his head. Remember, or he, I don't know, whoever you played as, picks him up by her spear and just throws him to the side, and it's like, oh, like a pretty central character just got massacred in front of us.
And he really died in that battle. Not like that, but yeah, he actually died in that battle. So it's like inevitable, right? It's like, no, this happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a badass. But yeah, again, I remember looking that up. Like, did that actually happen? And they're like, yeah, he died in that exact battle. So, so cool. There's some story beats that they cannot avoid, right? It's like, yeah, no, we need to figure out how to implement this character and kill this character according to how they actually died,
Right.
Because not a lot of them, a lot of them died pretty young, especially back then.
Yeah.
So. Very cool. Well, that's awesome. Well, I'll go ahead and change my number 2. I was going to talk about somebody else, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about King Leonidas.
Ooh.
That is one of mine, also from Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Oh, you're changing it to be with Odyssey theme? Is that
Yes, yeah. It was like number 4 on my list.
Perfect.
Let me go ahead and change my screen for Johnny here so he can see what I'm talking about. But King Leonidas, let me make sure I got the right tab open here. So
what a beast.
Very cool thing about King Leonidas. Let me show a picture of him. This is what he looks like in the game. They kind of depicted him similar to the movie 300, with
Yes,
Gerald Butler,
100%.
right? Very similar. Not, they depict him as quite a bit older in the game. He's very wrinkly. He's probably in his 50s, but just in his prime still. Like this guy, there's no stopping him, right? In the game, obviously, they have him being very closely related to Isu, and he has the Spear of Leonidas, which is like, has crazy powers, and you learn that he's tied in with the Isu on such a fundamental level, not just with his weapons and his knowledge, but his DNA. And so he is a very powerful, essentially demigod in the game. But in real life, he's just a man. He is a commander. It's always talked about his troops of, his 300, which actually did happen and all, but really he commanded an army of about 1,700 military men. But
jeez,
a lot of Leonidas, besides the god stuff, is true. Most of you watching this are very familiar with the Battle of Thermopylae, where it was, the 300 Spartans defending against the tens of thousands of Persians that were trying to invade Sparta. And they would have just demolished Sparta had they actually gotten through. But Thermopylae specifically, the way that Thermopylae, like with the cliffs and the shore and everything, they actually depict it in the movie 300 very well. In the game, they didn't really. The game, it's kind of just like open battle, right? Where it's just like, you're kind of just being a badass, like running around, stabbing people, killing a boss, It was not that disorganized. Let me actually show you a picture. He actually used, what is this called? He fought with, it's called the phalanx?
The phalanx.
The phalanx system, where basically you have a very tight-knit group of warriors with long spears and shields. And so, again, in the movie, they depict this very well, where they're all so tight-knit, and they've got their spears on top of their shields, but they've got rows and rows and rows of men, where the front row has their spears pointed, and then the one right before has them kind of slanted, and the one before it's up and up and up. And so the idea of this is the front line is being spent, but has their defense is a giant sharp weapon, and they can just stab and ram and defend from arrows, and they can defend the back line with all the shields and like put it above their heads. And it's almost impenetrable. There's almost no way to break up this unison other than sheer force of thousands of men. And that's what happened. Over 100,000 Persians came and lost to the 300,
What?
essentially. They did. The Persian,
100,000?
the Persians eventually did get through. There were so many Persians that they did eventually get through, but they would have swept over all of Greece if it wasn't for the giant headache that they caused. And in fact,
God.
they actually, King Xerxes was so upset and so pissed off at King Leonidas for doing this, for thwarting tens of thousands of his men, over 100,000 of his men, that they found his body, decapitated him, and he like displayed his head in his throne. Like he literally wanted his head on a platter. He was that upset.
Damn.
And so, yeah, crazy. He was like, he had beef with Leonidas because he was just that much of a badass. So that is all a true story. The actual, the prophecy from the Oracle of Delphi, that's actually all true as well. There was a prophecy, and Leonidas was essentially told from the prophecy and was told by the higher-ups, like, no, you're not allowed to go fight the Persians. You're not allowed to go to war. But he did anyways. He took 300 of the best men that were willing to abandon, the commands of everyone else, of all of Athens or all of Sparta, and go and defend their homes. And so, really cool story. And just about everything was, besides those little details of like, the fighting style was different, right? It was way more tight knit with the phalanx, system.
Yes.
He was a badass. They really did fight off the Persians. He did die in that battle. But yeah, besides that, he's not an Isu. He doesn't have superpowers or anything like that. But besides that, it's they depict him pretty well as a badass. So I love that scene. in Odyssey, by the way. That's like one of my favorite. Like, what a way to start the game. Like that.
Open it up. Yeah.
That was so cool. I love it so much.
Oh,
So anyways,
God.
that's King Leonidas.
What a great pick again. Like, oh, I love Odyssey so much. It gets me. I played it a little bit yesterday, and I was like, wait a minute.
I saw I saw your post on TikTok. I was like, did he play Odyssey the other day?
It might be time. I haven't done a full replay of that game, start to finish, since 2021. So
it's been 5 years.
It might be time, because I absolutely adore that game. It's probably in my top 3 on any given day. But and that's such a huge part of it. Like the history. You want history? History nerds love ancient Greece, and ancient Greece in Odyssey is, I mean, it's beyond peak. It's like an absolute gem in gaming, in my opinion. That whole world that they built is unbelievable, and you're really making me want to go back and play it. So I'm now going to move to... Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, for those that really do love the Greek period and the game, for those that don't know, in Odyssey, they actually built, as a part of the game, I think there's like little nodes that you can scan across the map of, not in the map, but when you're traveling, it will, other games after Odyssey do this as well, but I think Odyssey was the first, or maybe it was Origins, where you can actually learn about the true history of a lot of the places that you're visiting in the game, as well as the people. There's like a whole index in the menu that you can go and look at the history of what you're playing, and like, oh, I'm at the this Colosseum, or I'm at this temple, or I'm at this historical place, and whoa, this is real, and look at a picture of what it looks like now, and let me read about this, or a battle that took place here. Odyssey does this, Valhalla does this, I believe Mirage does this, and of course Shadows. I think Shadows does it the best.
I agree.
But yeah, if you guys are really, when you're playing the game and you notice those, don't skip them. Like, read about them, because they are so cool, to the point that I like to watch BBC documentaries about some of this stuff. And there was one about ancient Greece that I was watching with my wife, and I was like, oh yeah, I've totally been there in the game, and I knew about that. I knew about the history of that spot already because of one of the nodes that I scanned in the game. Like, literally. And there's a quest that I kill a bear there. Like, and it looks so similar. So they depict it so well, and they do teach you some cool history. So anyways, thought I'd throw that out there so you guys know about it.
Well, those little nodes, I mean, that's almost kind of what we're trying to do with these more history-focused episodes, because when you read those nodes, like, immersion times a million. Like, that's when it gets so much more, like, you just become obsessed with it when you start to recognize that, like, wait a minute, this isn't just a video game. Like, I don't know, 60% of this is very real and very true and did happen and very relevant, and these places are real. And that's where these games, this is the reason Assassin's Creed is like my favorite franchise. It's always the setting they put it in, and the work they do to bring the immersion in is second to none. And when you add those real life things, that's when it goes to a whole new level that very few other gaming franchises achieve, in my opinion. So I totally agree, and that's kind of, like I said, it's kind of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to help you guys with that immersion, so you can appreciate these characters better. And so, speaking of my next character, we're going to Black Flag, and we're going to, I believe, technically the second character you meet in Black Flag, being Steed Bonnet.
Oh,
I believe is how you pronounce him. Are you familiar?
No. That's not Captain Kidd, is it? Is that Captain Kidd?
No, Steed Bonnet, super interesting guy, lived 1688 to 1718. So this is the, like, kind of fat, chubby loser guy you meet in the beginning, the little merchant man.
I remember learning about this guy, and I was like, wait, what? He's real?
Yes.
And he actually had this crazy history?
Yes, so he's an interesting guy. So Edward meets him, and he's kind of a bumbling idiot. And he's like, well, this is kind of cool, this whole piratey thing. I'm more of just like a noble merchant man myself, but who knows?
At the very start of the game, right? He's the one at the very start.
Correct.
Like when you kill that assassin, take his robes, and you find him like with the red coats.
Yes. Exactly. And you like save him real quick and you're like, I need you to take me to shore. And he's like, okay, sure, whatever. And it's kind of, you get this weird relationship of like, I don't know, like the quarterback talking to like a total nerd. Like you get that like Edward probably wouldn't normally be friends with this guy, but he is quite friendly with him. And that's what first of all, it's a really nice part of Edward where you see like he's very human and he's very like approachable and friendly guy. And so he's talking to this like bumbling idiot. And then like a couple missions go by and then you see he's like a pirate and like he has his own ship and it's weird. And then whatever, the game goes on and he changes and I will get to that. But so who is this guy really? He really was he not driven to piracy by anything. No revenge, no like monetary anything. He was, in real life, a wealthy, educated, socially respected man who was married with kids. And he up and left to be a pirate. Like, that's the real history.
Yeah.
And that's why it almost looks so absurd in the game when that's exactly what happens. And you're like, what the hell is this guy doing? So, let's see. Accounts suggest that he had some dissatisfaction with his domestic life. Maybe he was depressed, but he had a romantic obsession with adventure. He didn't fall into piracy, he chose it. And this is interesting because so that's real life. In the game he does the same exact thing. He sees Edward do it and he's like, "Okay." So in the game they kind of make Edward his motivation to go ahead and do it, but it was still a choice. This is where it gets really interesting because Steed is a mirror. He's a foil is in what a lot of people would call it to Edward, right? So Edward begins as a, he's in the opening scene as just like a sailor. What do they call him? He's like a private, a lieutenant, something like. Yeah. So and he's with Caroline, right? His girl in the beginning, and he's like, I need more, and he's seeking adventure, and he's seeking money, and he's seeking to better himself and be bigger. Edward chooses piracy. Steed chooses piracy, but for completely opposite reasons. Edward's chasing wealth, Bonnet's chasing meaning, and then. The way that, huge shout out right here to, I believe it's Arav Ghost, ARAV_Ghost on TikTok. I remember this post he had from years ago, and it's this really, really cool moment in Black Flag. This TikTok account's a Black Flag like only account. He loves Black Flag, this guy. And he posted this one, and Edward's crouching, and he's overhearing some guards talking about Steed Bonnet. This is toward the end of the game. And you hear him say, yeah, we caught him and we hanged him. And then you look over there, and I believe this is in the video, you could go and see his grave. So you see this guy who came up now, who Edward met rather innocently, was very friendly with throughout the game. They come together and go apart in the game. He meets him a couple times, and he's like being a pirate and stuff like that. In real life, Steed Bonnet was captured and hanged from the neck, as they say, and killed and died for being a pirate. And it's funny when you draw these, the way that they work in this real pirate into Edward's story is fascinating because this is a major part, not Steed specifically, but this whole theme of like the consequences of your actions and like not being careless and, how Edward has to wake up to the creed and not waste his life and his talent, right? That's the whole theme of it. That's why he watches all his friends that he makes throughout the game die. And this little Easter egg they put in about the most innocent person he met, his mirror character, they both became pirates at the same time. They got into this world at the same time. They mirror this at the very end of the game. You learn that he died. And Edward, all of a sudden, not because of this, again, this isn't brought up directly. It's more of a background fact. But that's when Edward then turns to the creed and says, okay, I will change my life because that's he sees what it does to people, what, being a pirate and making the wrong choices and stuff like that. And I think to take a real character like Steed Bonnet, who went through everything that he went through in the game perfectly, like that is a perfect representation of who he was. He was a bumbling kind of fool. He didn't know what he was doing. He was chasing adventure and he died for it. It turns out he actually paid his crew and all this other stuff. He was a very unique pirate because he wasn't a real pirate. He wasn't doing it for the right reasons. But the way that they chose that real character, that real person, I should say, and they write him into Edward's story to kind of parallel that, it's really, really fascinating. And I think really, really well done. So, he was pretty perfectly represented. The one difference it says here, in real life, Bonnet was executed. In Black Flag, it was downplayed, meaning kind of in the background. But nonetheless, everything was the same. He was also very close to Blackbeard. Or he depended on Blackbeard, I should say, and that's both true in real life and in the game as well. No sailing experience. He was a wealthy gentleman. He was an inept pirate, and he met a tragic end. All true. And the way that they take this completely true character and use it to mirror Edward, I think, is fascinating. And so huge shout out to that TikTok account, Arav Ghost. Go check it out because it's one of the cooler Easter eggs in Assassin's Creed, in my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that Easter egg at all. I do remember years later, like just a few years ago, finding out that like, oh yeah, like he's a real pirate and he died, before, during the events of the game. But I didn't know that Easter egg was there. I do remember the last time you see him, right? He's kind of like, he's in pirate gear, but he's like still so goofy and like SpongeBob, Yeah. And he's like, "Hey, Edward, it's me. I'm a pirate now. Look, aren't you proud of me?" And then he's like, "Okay, bye," because they're like on like passing ships,
Yes, exactly.
And that's the last time you see him because he dies shortly after that. If not immediately after that, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, that would be kind of nice if I wonder if in the remake if they're going to. I hope that they add some things like that, and not just Easter egg, but actually maybe add some scenes about that or some dialogue from Edward or something like that into there. Because that parallel between the two, I never even drew that line because they don't focus on it.
Yeah, exactly. But it is there, and it's on purpose. When you have that little Easter egg in the background and you hear the guards talking about it, well, when you're listening to it, you're like, damn, he died. When you hear these guards, they're like, yeah, we got Bonnet. We hanged him. And it's like, oh, man, this guy who I was with this whole game is dead, and we didn't even see it.
Yeah.
It makes it feel more like immersive and real and sad.
That is kind of sad.
So,
well,
that was my number 2. My
number 3, I will shift to be in tandem with yours, and it is Blackbeard.
Oh, nice.
So I love that you picked a way more niche one. There are some really, like, just about every pirate that you come in contact with in Assassin's Creed Black Flag has a lot of relevance historically. Like, they're all real people in history, right. And they had a lot of weight in the time period, and Blackbeard being one of the biggest, if not the biggest, of the time period. So this is a picture of Blackbeard in the game. We're very familiar with him, and this is a depiction of him. And so right off the bat, you'll probably notice a similarity, which is actually historically accurate to the T. Is he would get slow burning, basically like cannon fuses. And he would like hide them within his beard. So here it shows it on his hat. Historically, it says that he hid it within his black beard, and then he'd light them, and it would do a slow smoke, right? And it was for the exact reason that he would look like a devil or some kind of demon when he was raiding ships. And so out of the cannon fire smoke, he'd come out this glowing, fiery, black-bearded beast. And he'd cast fear in the hearts of the traders and everything. So it worked. Obviously, I think part of the reason why he was so renowned was not because of all of the hits that he did or all the money he stole or anything like that. It really was just he was a character. He kind of made himself a character and made himself memorable. People told stories about the demon who raided their ship, and so. The main difference is between him in the game and him in real life, there's not a ton. He actually didn't have a long run. I think it was only a handful of years that he was actually a pirate. He was taken out pretty quick. He died in but he did die in like a massive battle. So that is one that is historically accurate. In the game, it shows him, like going out, sword fights and everything, and getting stabbed a few times. It was actually more crazy than that. He had reportedly suffered 5 gunshot wounds and 20 sword cuts before falling.
Oh.
So how they depict it is extremely accurate. Like, he kept getting shot and kept getting stabbed, and he kept going.
Brutal scene.
And
Brutal
so, yeah,
scene.
like that actually happened. It was on November 22nd, 1718, and it was against Robert
Wow.
Minard and his ship. So, yeah, it was a crazy battle. So the beard is accurate. How he died is accurate. One thing that's a little inaccurate is his relationship with slavery. In the movie, in the game, it depicts him as being pretty respectful to his black crew, like Adewale.
Yeah.
And also, like, going after slave ships to free them. In reality, he did go after slave ships, but it wasn't to necessarily free them. He did have mixed crew, and he did free some big slaves for his crew, but he did treat others as property, and he sold them as property for a profit. So not he's a pirate, right? He's a pirate. But one thing that is very cool is that the very first ship that I believe is the very first ship was actually a slave ship, and it was Queen Anne's Revenge. So that's what he ends up calling it later on. It was called the La Concorde. It was a French slave ship. And so in 1717, which, by the way, this was 1 year before he died. Like I said, he had a very short run. Because he died in 1718. So in 1717, he captured that ship, and he outfitted it with 40 cannons, making it one of the most powerful vessels in the entire Caribbean. This is a model, little ship model of what it looked like that somebody made. But you can see the sheer amount of cannon. Like, this is something out of Pirates of the Caribbean. This is insane.
Yeah.
Like, this is Davy Jones' freaking ship. This is crazy. I guess Blackbeard is actually in those movies. I actually haven't seen that one. They made so many pirates. For me, Pirates of the Caribbean is like a trilogy, and then there's like the two movies after that I kind of ignore. But yeah, so Queen Anne's Revenge was a badass ship, and he just fitted it with a ton of cannons. I think is the coolest thing. And they depict in the game with your own character, with Edward, adding more cannons to his ship over time. It's expensive, right? You got to do one upgrade at a time. But that actually happened with pirates, is they would go back and they would, get a seemingly regular ship, and they'd outfit it to be a weapon of war. So very cool. Yeah, a lot of similarities.
Wow.
Also, the blockade at Charlestown, which takes place in the game, did actually happen. In 1718, before he died, he did do a huge blockade, and he held the entire city hostage for a week. And the only thing that he demanded was not money, it was medicine. And that's probably because of syphilis. A lot of pirates had syphilis. And so they wanted medicine in exchange for the city. So very cool. Yeah, it's just about accurate to a T, Blackbeard in the game, which is very cool.
Oh, man. This, again, I just want to play Black Flag. God dang it. Oh, I got to do like a full series replay. I really do. It's time. I miss them. I miss the games. Okay.
All right, Johnny, who do you have next?
All right, number 3 for me. This one's a personal favorite. The last few are personal favorites, actually. I'd say these next 3 I'm much more. They're some of my favorite side characters in the game, and yet they are fairly niche. So I went with Syndicate, a personal favorite game of mine. Right, probably my second favorite one. Frederick Aberline. So, do you remember him?
I do not at all. I've only played Syndicate once, and it was like 2 or 3 years ago, and I was streaming while playing it, and so I remember very little.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, if you're streaming and playing a story game, you have to focus when you're playing gameplay. So the second a cutscene hits, you go and you read the chat, and you have no idea what the hell's going on in the game.
Yep.
So it's brutal. So I don't blame you for that at all. This is great then. Frederick Aberline. Who was he? We'll start with real life. He lived 1843 to 1929. He was a detective inspector on Scotland Yard. What was he famous for, you ask? He was the lead investigator during the Jack the Ripper murders in 1888.
So is this part of the DLC? Is he in the DLC, the Jack the Ripper one?
He is, but he's not his main role is in the main game, which is, again, so cool that they chose somebody famous and they plopped him in to kind of really bring him just to tell his story. So who he was. Arlen was not a legendary super detective. He was a career policeman in an era where modern detective work barely existed. Basically, I mean, Victoria-era London, you're in like the Gilded Age. Things are not... There's a lot swept under the rug. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of things that shouldn't be happening that the cops don't have control of. This is very common. This was happening in America. This was happening everywhere because it was just a different time. There wasn't much order. There wasn't any sort of... There were way less laws. There were way less stuff. There was so much more you could get away with.
Yeah.
And the cops, therefore, had so much less power. I guess in real life, he worked mostly through interviews, informants, observation, pattern recognition. There was no DNA, there's no forensic stuff, there's no science behind criminal stuff. So you have to go on things like talking to people and sneaking around and kind of listening and spying and observing, and that's kind of how you like, oh, gotcha. It was very different time for detective back then. So why do I pick him? Why do I think he's so interesting? It's kind of, once again, his role in this whole kind of assassin, Templar, control, freedom, battle that's happening in this series. So in the game, he's an ally and a quest giver. He has a whole quest line. So you basically, what you do for him is you capture people. You don't kill them. He will give you a reward if you kill them, but you don't get nearly as much. You have to basically knock them out and take them to him, and then he will arrest them. So he acts as a moral and institutional counterbalance to the Fry twins. This is the important part. This is the cool part. So he represents lawful authority through an ally when you're really personally, you, the player, are running this city through gangs, right? As Jacob, you're running around making gangs and doing very illegal things and all this stuff, and yet you're working with this cop. So I think that his kind of relationship, once again, with like this battle is really interesting because in every Assassin's Creed game, the very main cannon fodder, if you will, is law enforcement. Yeah. Okay, right? In AC1, it's knights. In AC2, it's the guards, right? In AC3, it's the redcoats, Black Flag, redcoats. In Unity, it's the French guys with the guns, right? It's the cops. The cops. In Syndicate, it's literally cops, right? It is literally the blue dressed up policemen. And so throughout these games, and through a lot of these kind of similar superhero shows and good versus evil and really exaggerated themes like Assassins vs. Templars, what's usually caught in the middle is law. And because, assassins are killing people. They're not doing good things, but they're just ending the things of the really bad people, which are the Templars. But yet none of it's lawful. So in between assassins, which is like extreme, freedom at any cost, and then you have extreme control at any cost, is law. It's kind of similar to Cleon and what I was saying. It's kind of this in-between where he's promoting freedom through control. So, but what does he do? He works with the Fry twins. So despite him standing for justice and lawful good and all the stuff which he does in the game, he's constantly like reprimanding them and saying like, can you not do this, yada yada yada, and he's sneaking around them. And there's one scene he dresses up as like a lady and he's eavesdropping on them and all this other stuff. He's really goofy and really odd and awkward in the game, which apparently is fairly close to his real life depiction. And yet he works with these vigilantes. I mean, he's a real life Jim Gordon, right, from Batman. He has to represent the law, and yet a fundamental part of his character in the game is that he understands the law is flawed and the system is flawed and that there's judges paid off and there's corruption and all this other stuff. So in order to combat that, in order to make sure what's getting done is right, he has to move away from the law, and he has to actually work with Jacob and Evie despite constantly telling them he doesn't like doing it. He does what he does for the lawful good, so that in the end, you know what side he's on and you know where the legal system falls. And what it also does is it strengthens the creed. It strengthens the assassin's argument, where you see somebody who is doing whatever he can to be lawful and moral, and he just can't help with his current restrictions in the law and their limitations. So he turns to the assassins to work, for him and to get his work done because he couldn't do it any other way. So the differences and similarities, again, extremely accurate from everything I can understand. He was a Scotland Yard detective in both real life and the game. A methodical approach. Apparently, he was very methodical, and he was one of the first actual detective-y detectives, like the stereotypical, let me chase this and do this, whereas a lot of cops at the time would kind of just, whatever. They'd look past it and wouldn't really care. He was limited by the system in both real life. Through the Jack the Ripper case was his big thing, where it was very up in the air, and there was a lot of hysteria, and there was all this other stuff, and you couldn't prove everything, so he was very limited by what he could do. He claims he was pretty dead set on, let me see here, George Chapman, a suspect arrested many years later, may have been Jack the Ripper. He believes it was, but he couldn't prove it. He was very limited by the system. Now, the one thing that's different is any sort of vigilante collaboration. In the game, obviously, yes. In real life, no. But he had an obsession with Jack the Ripper in both Syndicate and real life. And it kind of, again, I kind of like the liberties they took, where they were like, okay, if there were these crime-fighting vigilantes and he was so obsessed with Jack the Ripper, he might have turned to them. Like that, he was so obsessed with it, it falls within his character to do so. So what a minor character, and yet I think his role in all of it, actually having a cop in this role in every Assassin's Creed, being the law, always gets put in between this conflict, and you just kill millions of them throughout all the games, right? That you're actually working with one, and you see that the role that law plays in this conflict, I think is fascinating. So that is why I chose him.
I love that. And, I love that character choice. I think one of his missions was, there's an assassination mission. Maybe it's not. You'll have to tell me. Where you're killing this doctor who's doing these gnarly experiments on humans.
Yes.
Is that one of his? And then you disguise yourself as a corpse, and then you come out of the sheet and kill the guy?
I don't think that's one of his. I think that's one of the actual main story missions. But you do work with him through the main story. His missions are a total side piece. You have his own quest line, and you have your own gear you can get through him. So those are much more... When I say his missions, they're more open world.
Yeah.
Go get this random Templar and bring him to me. Where in the game, yes, you are handing over the big guns to him, but it's not one given by him necessarily.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I love that. Very, very much Jim Gordon parallels, right? With yes. Him eventually having to work with Batman, who's not part of the law, but he has to work outside of the law, to get to actually uphold the law, because the law is so corrupt and whatever. That's so
right.
Cool. I wonder if the character of Jim Gordon is based off of him in any way.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's so fun to find how real they all are.
Well, my next one is Jack the Ripper. Actually, just kidding. It's actually Jack the Ripper. He was chased by this guy for years.
It's real.
Yeah. Yeah, well, did you hear about them actually figuring it out who it was based off of DNA?
No.
Did you not hear about that?
No.
This happened this year.
What?
Yeah, they know who Jack the Ripper is now.
Who was he?
Guaranteed they know who it is. I don't remember. I don't know if it was that guy
my God.
That you mentioned.
That's crazy.
But they went back, and they were actually, because of DNA, they were actually able, I think, I don't know where they got the DNA, but they were actually able to go all the way back and find out who he is. And I think they actually had a picture of him or something crazy.
No way.
Yeah, and everyone was kind of upset because it was quite literally a nobody. It wasn't this crazy thing. And I don't think it was anybody that they thought. It was just
wow.
Yeah, I never heard of this guy, but yeah, it was him. We have DNA to prove it. It'd be kind of interesting for the DLC for the Jack the Ripper to have an update just randomly.
They have. Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah,
for the family.
Historically accurate ending for Jack the Ripper. You come out of the Animus and they're like, yeah, hey, we found out who it is. You never find it out in the game, or in real life, or in the past.
That's so cool.
We know what it is now.
I did not know that.
Well, so my next person I want to talk about, I'll leave a good one for last. This one, this is a good one, but not my favorite one. Let me share my screen. Not to bum you out or anything. This is still a good one, but I'm saving one of the best for last here. So this is my fourth one. Johnny, let me share my screen for you. I'm talking about Cleopatra. So Cleopatra is a character from Assassin's Creed Origins. Obviously very real in history. She was the last pharaoh of Egypt. That's what's kind of she's mostly known for. It is really like the old way of Egypt is now retired. It is done. It is closed capped with her, because everything after that is no longer pharaohs and gods and things like that. It's Rome, and when it's not Rome, it's other leaders, other empires, other rulers, and then eventually Egypt as it stands, in modern history, with them being their own thing, which is kind of more recent with Egypt being their own country and everything. They've been under occupation a long time. So, but Cleopatra actually has a lot of differences. One of them being actually her appearance. This is what she looks like in the game, right? This tan goddess-looking chick.
Yeah, very nice.
And
I like that.
In real life, it is very widely debated how, to put it bluntly, how brown she was, how Egyptian she was, because we don't know who her mom was. We do know who her dad was, and we know that she is Macedonian. She's from Macedonia in Greece. So Macedonia is just like northern Greece, kind of border of Italy. It was its own country for a while. That's where Alexander the Great is from. And so very white, right? Very, very white. And so if you look at a lot of depictions of her, she looks like this, where she's very pale. There was that one Netflix documentary that came out that they depict her as like quite literally being black. If you guys saw any TikToks about that, I don't know why. My TikTok like 2 years ago was blowing up with all of that controversy. And you can go down that rabbit hole as much as you want. But she was likely pretty pale. And a lot of people describe her as having very pale skin. So that is one big difference, her own appearance. But also not just how white her skin was or not, but her actual attractiveness. They actually depict her as basically being a model goddess. she's drop dead gorgeous in the game. And in real life, that was nothing of note. Like, she was kind of just a normal looking woman. And of course she's, the pharaoh, so she's going to zhuzh it up as much as she can. But she was more known for her intellect. She was an extremely intelligent woman, which I don't think that they depicted in the game very well. They kind of depict her as scheming and, trying to get in bed with the most powerful people and things like that. And she's really using her sex appeal. Like there's a scene in the game where she literally tells Bayek or someone next to Bayek, like, I'll let you lay with me, but only if you let me kill you in the morning or whatever. Like, if you let me kill you, then I will let you sleep with me. That I think that they kind of just made that up. There's nothing that shows anything about that I could find. But again, she wasn't known for how sexy she was. She was really known for intellect. This chick spoke a dozen languages. How many does it say? Trying to find it. Man, it doesn't say here, but it was like literally 10 different languages. It was crazy. She speaks so many different languages. It says that she was a polyglot who spoke up to 9 languages and was the first in her dynasty to ever learn the Egyptian language.
Oh my God.
Because the Ptolemy, if you remember the Ptolemy family, they're all Greek, right? So before the Romans came in, it was the Greeks. It was Alexander the Great, which is why you have the Library of Alexandria. There's a huge Greek influence. There's multiple Greek towns within Egypt at this time. So Egypt, during this time of the game, is in this transition from Greek influence and Greek rule from Alexander the Great, and now it's Roman influence and Roman rule from Caesar. And Caesar is like obsessed with Alexander the Great, and that's very true. That was very true in history. He was trying to become the next Alexander the Great, which obviously he did. But you see that in the game, and so she was Greek. She was essentially Greek. But yeah, she was very smart. She was very tactical. She was an amazing tactician. And she spoke all those languages, which if you speak another language, you know how hard it is to learn another language. Now add 9 more. Like she was so smart. It's crazy.
Do you speak another language?
I speak a lot of Filipino languages. I served a church mission there for years.
Wow.
And so I speak Tagalog, Ilonggo, and Cebuano. Which,
oh my God, I didn't know that.
The main one that I learned was not a written language, so that was difficult.
My God,
which
how do you
back then
learn
that was kind of the case. Like there wasn't, I guess she was very well educated, so she probably had a lot of great teachers to teach her those different languages. But nonetheless, very, very cool. But she was also a patron of science and medicine, so she was she was a scholar almost first and foremost, but great tactician as well. What is true is her relationship with Julius Caesar, for the most part. Johnny, you'll have to remind me, does she actually get married to Julius Caesar in the video game?
Oh my God, I don't think so.
I kind of thought that she did, but in real life,
I thought we killed both of them, don't we?
No. We kill both of them in the game?
We definitely kill Caesar.
Yeah, we kill Caesar as Aya, which is that is
Yes.
all accurate. How he got stabbed and stuff. That's very famous. But does Cleopatra die in the game?
Oh, maybe not. Again, it's been probably 4 years since I played through Origins. I actually don't remember.
So their relationship, they did have a relationship. Her relationship with Caesar, though, was very controversial. It was an affair. It's so messed up. History is so weird. But with the pharaohs, with her being like the female pharaoh leader, it was required that she was married to her brother. So she was actually married to her younger brother, according to Egyptian law, which is so messed up.
Bad law.
But she had this affair with Julius Caesar for a few years, where she actually went to Rome and she lived there and she moved to a few different times there. But at the time, polygamy was not recognized in Rome, and he was already married. I don't remember who he was married to, but yeah, Caesar was already married to somebody else. So it was extremely controversial that he had this affair with Cleopatra, because he kind of did it openly. He, bottom line, was doing basically doing polygamy, because he had her live in one of his homes, and she stayed with him for years. One thing that is historically accurate, funny enough, is actually how she got into Caesar, into Caesar's home initially, how they smuggled her in that rug, if you remember in the video game.
Oh,
that actually happens.
Yeah.
They actually sneak her in to Caesar's place. It wasn't necessarily exactly a rug. It could have been a big laundry bag or a bed sack or something, but she was smuggled in to Caesar's place. But
that's what I mean. The little things, man, they get it right.
Yeah. So she does actually end up having a kid with him, and they do name him Caesar after him.
Whoa.
But it's a different. It's something Caesar, but they actually called him Little Caesar. So
no
way.
Pizza.
Yeah. So her son was Little Caesar. He was never officially recognized. He was definitely a son. It was confirmed. But he was never recognized within Roman law.
As an heir.
And so, as an heir. So it went to Octavius rather than to, nothing went to Little Caesar. Again.
Wow, that's a fun fact right there.
Yeah, what's really messed up is later in life, the affair ends with Julius Caesar. Julius dies. And before Cleopatra dies, she actually marries Octavius, who is his, grandnephew. Caesar's grandnephew.
Oh, wow.
So, there's just so many crossing the line. It's a freaking crazy web of incest or family relations or whatever.
Welcome to history.
The the final thing I want to note on Cleopatra is her death. It is true that it is historically accurate that she did die from poison, and it was historically it was suicide. Whereas in the video game, I don't believe that we ever get a scene, and this kind of bugged me in the game. We never actually get the scene of Aya killing Cleopatra with the snake. Because that's how the story goes, is that Cleopatra ended her own life with the venom of a cobra. But more historians have gone back and said it could have been a poisonous ointment or a toxic hair needle to ensure a quick death. Like it wasn't necessarily a snake bite. Right. But it could have been, and she was poisoned to death. And it was suicide. But in the game, it's Aya, who is Bayek's wife, that kills her with the snake. But we never see it in the game. The only reason why we know that actually happens is, funny enough, in Assassin's Creed 2. There are in Ezio's home, or I should say in Mario's home in the basement.
In the basement, there
are the statues of the great the assassins, the great assassins throughout history that they're kind of honoring with the statues. And of course, you have Altair in the middle, and you have the Altair armor. But one of those statues is Aya, which is how we knew about Aya way before Origins. Bayek wasn't conceived yet in the brain of Ubisoft. And it says highlights of the assassins' lives. So it says what makes Altair famous, what makes this other guy famous. And the one for Aya was that she famously killed Cleopatra in Rome with a cobra.
Man, they cooked.
But we never see that in the game.
Nah,
we do get the cool scene of her doing the first stab to Caesar, and then that causes everyone to come stab Caesar. But we never see it in the game of Cleopatra dying. I think it's because she died quite a bit later, and the game doesn't go that late. I kind of wish that they would have shown it in a DLC, because the DLCs do go that late in time. But nonetheless, she did get poisoned to death. It was suicide rather than somebody doing it to her. But she was poisoned to death, so that was accurate. But yeah, that's Cleopatra.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I love when you can see that they were like not planting the seeds, and they probably retroactively went back and were like, hey, we can do one about this Egyptian girl. And if you didn't know, Origins was supposed to be about Aya entirely. And for marketing reasons, they didn't think people wanted to play as a girl. They came up with the character of Bayek. But the entire game was based off that statue, which is really, really cool. And they were like, yeah, we want to see Egypt. Oh, we can use this girl that we put in AC2, and it would work great. And I love shit like that. I love when it works and it looks like they planned it from the beginning. That's world building, and that stuff's so cool.
Well, and mark my words, Johnny and I have talked about this in depth, about what Origins should have been. We love Origins, but they could have made Origins way more, and especially a sequel to Origins. Johnny and I one day, I don't know if you remember this, Johnny, a year ago, we concocted what should have been the path of Assassin's Creed after the events of Assassin's Creed Origins with the reboot, essentially the refresh of Assassin's Creed, and we freaking cooked. Some of that is in old podcasts, some of that is offline. So mark my words, we will make an episode. We want to kind of utilize AI to kind of help storyboard so we can visually show you our idea of what Assassin's Creed should have been. They can still technically do it and get away with it, but we're going to storyboard it, and we're going to make it pretty for you guys and make it write kind of a broad script of what the story should have done. And it's going to be sick, because we were freaking cooking, and we
have the best.
we got some good ideas.
Fan fictions. We do. Hire us, Ubisoft. Hire us. Our fan fictions go crazy. All right, for my fourth one, this is more a personal favorite, like one of the coolest characters in recent memory, and I was more so interested just being like, how real was this guy? So I have a feeling this is going to lead into yours next one, but I don't know if it will or not. The person I chose is Hattori Hanzo from Assassin's Creed Shadows. So Hanzo in Shadows is this like really, really, really badass, like almost like mythological, like perfect badass. I don't even know how to explain it. Everything about him is like aura. It's cool. He's got the coolest looking armor in the game. He's got the coolest voice. His voice acting's sick. And basically his role in the game is like this silent, watchful protector of Naue, who, like, I believe, played it almost a year ago now, but I believe he had a thing for Naue's mom, and she wouldn't go with him. He basically graduated from the Kakushiba Iki, which is the assassins, the assassin order they had in Iga. He basically graduated from there and like left them and had a falling out with them, but basically had a thing with her mom and it didn't work out, whatever. So basically he spent his whole time watching over Naue and protecting her. And this is where we get to the real life part, is really, really cool. Turns out he was very real, and his existence gives a lot of insight to the game, which is really cool. So Hattori Hanzo Masanari, he lived from 1542 to 1596 during the Sengoku period, which is the Japanese age of constant civil war. Where was he from, you ask? Iga. Very cool. That works very nicely. Contrary to popular media, Hattori Hanzo was not a black-clad assassin constantly sneaking in the rooftops. Historically, he was a samurai commander, a military technician, and a leader of Iga guerrilla warriors. Super cool. So again, this is kind of like, you can see the devs and the writers being like, how do we work some sort of assassin group into real life history? And they were real. There was this like special group of Iga warriors. They were called the Iga warriors, or the Iga Ryu ninja, were legendary covert agents and guerrilla fighters from Japan's Iga region, renowned for stealth, espionage, explosive, unique ninjutsu skills, often serving under figures like Hattori Hanzo and later as guards for the Tokugawa shogunate. So, Tokugawa, who's that? What is he? What's this? Why is Hanzo relevant, you ask? Well, he became legendary because after Oda Nobunaga's death in 1582, Tokugawa Ieyasu was stranded deep in enemy territory. And so what did Hanzo do? He organized these Iga guerrilla fighters, and they went in, basically extracted the shogun and saved him, and saving his whole dynasty before it even began. This is very accurately portrayed in the game. So, and to give a little more of a background, Tokugawa was part of this larger story that basically he was the third of the three great unifiers of Japan, along with his former lord, Oda Nobunaga, and fellow Oda subordinate, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, who I believe is also in Assassin's Creed Shadows. So all of this is real, and I love when you can see, like, I can picture the writer's room. They're going, how do we work this in? How do we work some sort of assassin group in? And how do we work some historical figures in? And turns out there is this secret ninja Iga group of people, and they said, great, we'll put this warrior here. And that's when they add her dad, who I believe is a totally fictional character, and now he's a totally fictional character. But nonetheless, Hanzo's relationship with these assassins, with the Kakushiba Iki, with basically Naue's mom and Naue and this group of assassins, is all very real and actually did happen. So I thought it was fascinating. I think that is so cool, and it really gives some insight to why they chose who they did. So it says here, in Shadows, he's a key political and military figure. He bridges the worlds of samurai authority and shinobi tactics, and he acts as a strategist, mentor, and ideological counterweight. He's not portrayed as a rogue killer. He's portrayed as someone who understands when subtlety is more effective than honor-bound warfare, and this is a very, very accurate interpretation. He's very intelligent. He's very strategic and tactical, and he chooses discipline over spectacle and precision over brute force and all this other stuff. So supposedly it was extremely accurately depicted. They did lean into his more mythological side. Not that he has any powers, but he's like I was saying earlier, he's like oozing badass and oozing aura in the game. And apparently, like, that's a common way to portray him in media because he saved the eventual shogun. So he was basically raised to like stardom or fame. It grew way after his death because of the fact that he saved the shogun. So really cool. And once again, I think Ubisoft does a really good job of writing real history into their game to make sense. And they put in probably one of my favorite characters in the story. And it's also so cool because, like, I would never know who this is, right? This guy who really did exist and really did lead this like guerrilla clan of these ninjas and did save the shogun, I wouldn't know who it is. And Ubisoft says, great, we're going to tell his story, we're going to tell his story, we're going to tell his story. Really, really cool. One of my favorite characters in the game, and I'm so happy that it was all real.
Well, that is very cool. Yeah, I love that. So much of in Assassin's Creed Shadows, there is so much, like, again, just about every main character that you're talking to, and even side characters that you're talking to, are like real life people. They really dove into it. My only complaint is that Hanzo wasn't in the game enough. I don't know. I
agree.
Is he in the DLC a lot more?
No.
Oh, really? Wow, I thought for sure that's like what he talks about, is like, I'm gonna help you find your mom.
I don't think he is. I don't think he is, unfortunately.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, he's not in it enough then, I guess. But yeah, that's very cool. And I mean, there's so many people from these games that we are not talking about, you know, like Oda Nobunaga.
Hundreds.
Oh my gosh. We could do a whole episode on him.
Oh, you don't have Oda? I figured he was your fifth.
No, he's not my fifth. No.
That
would be a great one though. You know, another episode. I
thought you loved him.
Some of these, so just so you guys know, watching, we do want to do some deep dives, and let us know in the comments how you would like that. Where rather than doing a really broad, dive on some of these characters, we're doing a deep dive into like, hey, here was the political atmosphere of Victorian England leading up to the events of Assassin's Creed Syndicate, or specifically like Assassin's Creed Valhalla with King Henry, and like what was the relationship with Vikings and the Anglo-Saxon people, and then all of the lords within England at the time, because all of that, if you're not familiar with it and you're just taking it all from the fire hose, you're like, whoa, like I don't understand. I don't know which of these names that are being dropped and these characters that we're meeting, which of them are actually relevant and which ones are not. Like which one should I care about? And so, and even things like ones that you aren't really, prevalent in the game a lot, but they are very important, like that one pirate that Johnny talked about, like he's barely in the game, but he like had such a cool history. And if you know him, then you're gonna be like, whoa, no way. Like, that's so cool. I didn't know anything about Oda Nobunaga before the games. And then afterwards going and researching him, I'm like, whoa, like I cannot believe how accurate they were with everything that happened, and that they were able to concoct such a cool, story as if they made it from scratch to be dramatic and everything. But it's like, no, this actually happened just like this, so very, very cool. I love that. Well, my last person that I'm going to be talking about today is none other than King Washington. Not actually King.
Oh, yeah.
George Washington. I say King Washington because there's a DLC, of course, of King Washington. That is all fake. Not going to be talking about that. I actually never, surprisingly enough, AC3 is my favorite AC game. I never played the King Washington DLC for two reasons. One, I like George Washington as a person and as a character in the game a lot. And it's basically a big what if. Right? What if George Washington became a tyrant? And then that is also the second thing of like, it's all a what if. It's not, none of it actually happens in the game, nor does it happen in real life. And so it's just complete fantasy. You can turn into like animals in the DLC. I'm sure it's fun for those that have played it. I have not. Maybe I will someday. But I like how they depicted him. But here's a picture of George Washington in the game. when in fact he almost looked nothing like this. He, at least without the powdered wig, we all know what George Washington looks like with the powdered wig when he's 60 years old, right? But when he was young, he actually had red hair, which I thought was interesting. But the second big thing, not to have a play on words there, is he was effing huge. George Washington was 6'2", which may not seem that big, okay? 6'2", some of you may be 6'2" or taller or have family members or know people, right? People are tall. However, the average height back in the day, in the 1700s, I Googled this, was 5'5" for a man in the 1700s. Today, it is 5'10". So the difference between an average man today and someone who's 6'2" is 4 inches. Compare that to 5'5". Are you kidding me? A 9-inch difference from the average man to George Washington. This guy was a freaking giant. So that alone, like, they did not depict how tall he was in the game. They kind of have everybody being like the same size. And I get it. They're all, models, like character models in a video game. But this guy was freaking huge compared to everybody else. Like, everybody was so short in the 17 and 1800s that if you actually go, and Johnny, you probably know this being from Boston, if you go into some historical homes and historical buildings, the door frames are significantly shorter.
Yeah.
I'm in Utah.
Everything.
We have a lot of 1800s architecture from the pioneers that first came here. Again, average height was way shorter. And so all of the door frames are like, you got to duck through. I'm only 6 feet tall, but I still have to like duck through some of the stuff because it's like they were just shorter. So very interesting. He looked very different. One last thing on his appearance. He had some wild teeth.
Oh, God.
So I'm sure some of you may know this. Maybe you know it from that one comedy bit from that one comedian. I don't remember his name. He has a pretty funny bit about it. But he had some nasty teeth issues, sadly, like young in life. Like, it wasn't when he was old. It was like before he was even president of the United States. He like basically lost all of his teeth and they were just rotting and nasty. So he had fake teeth, and this is what they look like. These are his actual teeth. This is in a museum. It is nasty.
Ew.
And they are made up of his own teeth that have fallen out, horse teeth, ivory teeth, and slave teeth.
Oh, my God.
And they were all, like, spring-loaded, so you can actually see, like, little springs in here. And so it was all, like, spring hinges and everything. And I believe that the actual dentures, I believe that they were lead. Maybe they were iron.
That is insane.
They probably weren't.
You know how
I think
heavy
maybe
that must have been in his face?
You can see that. It's metal. Nasty, nasty. So that's why every depiction you see of him, every painting that was actually painted in the 1700s of George Washington, it is with his mouth closed, right? He's kind of just not even smiling, right? Because he had a nasty, nasty mouth. So you can imagine this red-headed 6'2" monster with nasty-ass teeth coming at you on a horse and a sword.
I'm good.
You're terrified, bro. You're terrified. So physically, I think that is one of the biggest differences, was all of those that I noted. One big one as well was just kind of his military competence in the game. In the game, he's kind of portrayed as he failed a lot, which of course the early settlers did fail a lot, and the founding fathers often were at odds with each other. But they kind of show him as like incompetent in where Connor and the assassins are specifically having to save his butt all the time. And like Connor literally is roasting George Washington multiple times. Like, yeah, well he's like, I love the scene actually. I love the scene for Connor where he says, that is the last victory that I'm going to be giving you, Washington. Don't expect another one. And so it's really painting this light of he's pretty incompetent, and if it wasn't for Connor, he wouldn't be winning all the time. When in reality, he was one of the most brilliant logistical leaders in the world. And like, if they were so outmatched and outnumbered during the Revolutionary War that Like, if you had placed bets on it, it would be like 1,000,000 to 1. There is no shot that they are going to win against the biggest empire that the planet has ever seen, besides Rome, kind of. But the English Empire at the time was massive.
Yeah.
And so he was most well known for his Fabian strategy. I don't believe that he invented it. Maybe he named it. I believe that he named it after. So there's a Roman general whose part of his name was Fabian, who actually used this tactic. It's kind of like guerrilla warfare, which they did use a lot in the Revolutionary War, and you obviously, as Connor, use a lot in the game. But he specifically won a lot of battles by basically starving out his competition. So he would drag out battles where he would kind of outlast his opponent, where he would cut off supply chains. He would, he would taint water, or he would, cut off ammunition and supplies coming in, and he would outlast them to weaken their forces and then win the day. So really, really good tactic, especially against the British that were used to fighting in a very specific manner back then. And he knew he knew their crippling point. He was a general for the British Army for a long time, so he knew how to win, which, really cool. So way more competent as a military leader. Some things that were true in the game, it's revealed that the attack on Connor's village, the razing of his village, was actually executed by George Washington, and that Lee was only fulfilling Washington's command.
Oh, man.
And so that's a big turning point in the game. That's where Connor's like, okay, I've got no allies. Like, screw the Americans, screw the British, screw the Templars. I'm on my own. And so not Connor's village, obviously, but historically he did order the Sullivan expedition, which was the razing of the Iroquois villages. And he actually got the name Town Destroyer from doing that. So that part is accurate. History is a little dodgy. But he was a very private guy. He did love theater and dancing and high energy parties. And he did beat the British in the Revolutionary War because of his brilliance in war.
Hell yeah.
So really cool. I love George Washington. I love American history. Like Revolutionary War period. I really do like his depiction in the game for the most part. But yeah, kind of funny all the differences. It would be kind of fun to depict him as this 6'2", giant, redheaded, nasty teeth horseman.
He's like a cartoon, though, in American culture at this point. Like, if they depicted him as that, people would be like, who the hell is that? Whereas you could show this, like, cartoon version of George Washington. Everyone would know exactly who it is instantly. You know what I mean?
Yep, definitely. But, that's my last one.
Slave teeth grossed me out. That's disgusting. That's so
Did you know
nasty.
that about his teeth?
I didn't. I thought it was like wood or horse. I knew the horse thing. I heard maybe it was wooden. I did not know it was some other guy's teeth.
No wood actually at all.
Oh, that's nasty. And the metal, you know how heavy that would be if you have lead in your mouth? No thanks.
Nasty.
No thanks. Very cool. I'm glad you ended on, a personal favorite. You're such a big AC3 lover. And
I'm a simp. Simp for AC3.
Speaking of simps, I saved my personal favorite for last as well, who I believe is the most interesting, the coolest, most well-written antagonist in any of these games. So it shouldn't be a surprise to you, but I'll be going over with my final pick, King Alfred the Great in Assassin's Creed.
I'm excited for this because I don't know a lot about King Alfred.
King Alfred, well, to give you some, to summarize it briefly, he's King Alfred the Great. He is the only English king to ever earn the title the Great, which is pretty darn. He was an extremely influential king in real life. So he lived from 1849 to 1899, and he ruled as the King of Wessex. So he wasn't famous because he conquered everything. He was famous because he saved England from collapse. During his reign was the largest Viking invasion ever. The Great Heathen Army was essentially the gathering of all these different clans, all these different Viking clans from around Scandinavia joining together saying, let's go take England entirely. And they were basically successful. Northumbria fell and East Anglia fell, and Wessex was the last standing kingdom. And he lost badly initially, apparently, but he regrouped, reformed his army, and then actually turned around and beat that giant army. And this is important. Instead of exterminating them, he negotiated with them. And this is all true. He actually allowed a Viking settlement in England. He said, you want to be here so bad you can, but you have to do it under my control, essentially, which is where you start to see this theme come into play. So he was a ruler in the most, plain of terms. He ruled over everybody, every one of his subjects, everybody in the kingdom was under his control. And he did that through a bunch of systems. His whole thing was systems and organization and reforming things. He changed a lot, essentially. So military reform, he created fortified towns called burhs. He established rotating military militias so farms didn't collapse. Legal reform, he unified law codes and emphasized justice and mercy and its organization. He organized this whole kingdom, which England was on the literal brink of collapse, and then he just made so many different structures that essentially he ruled through these structures. So he promoted literacy, education, and a huge claim to fame that King Alfred has was he was extremely, extremely Christian, as, most were back then. His big thing, though, was he translated the Bible from Latin to English. He was the first one to do it. It was extremely unpopular at the time because it was a very kind of noble thing to be able to read the Bible. You had to have somebody tell you it. You had to have a priest translate the Bible for you. So he said, no, I want it. He had it translated into Old English, which is very controversial at the time, but he wanted the people to be able to read it because he was deeply Christian and he believed order came from faith, discipline, and learning. That's how he believed he could get all of his subjects on the same page so that he could rule over them completely. He was intelligent, cautious, stubborn, morally rigid, and willing to sacrifice personal comfort for long-term order. That's his real life retelling. That's how he was, and that was not Assassin's Creed Valhalla at this point. All this order and control and ruling, that's all real. So you can tell they had a clear, bingo, we're making a Viking game. Who was the king during the Viking raids? The main Viking raids was King Alfred, and he was like Mr. Order and Control. So pretty cool when you look at it from that point of view. King Alfred isn't typically thought of as villainous, though. He was pretty well liked. He stood up for a lot of educating the people and bringing, like I said, the Bible in English. And he even said, you know what, the Vikings who just came and killed everybody here, you can have a place here if you really want it. So he wasn't necessarily evil, but he was big on order, which is the most raw form of what a Templar is. Templars aren't evil. They're not supposed to be. That's not really what their ideology is, right? They just believe in order over freedom. It turns out to be evil a lot of the time in practice, but it's if you break it down to its core, it's freedom versus control. It's not necessarily good versus evil. However, that is typically how it tends to be ironed out. But Alfred isn't necessarily evil. In Valhalla, so in the game, he appears as frail and unassuming monk-like figure. He's kind of like this really thin, sickly-looking king who's always slouched in his chair and really creepy and dark-looking. He's not a battlefield presence. He's not a warrior king, anything like that. He operates behind the scenes. If you remember, he actually orchestrates kind of taking Sigurd, and he cuts off his hand. He does all this other stuff, and he's always there. You always see him as the antagonist up front. But what's happening the whole time in the background of the game is Eivor's getting these letters sent to him by the poor soldier of poor soldier of Christ or something like that. Some unassuming, all these like insider things that Eivor's getting these letters from, and he doesn't know who it's from the whole time. And basically he gets these letters and he goes kills somebody in the Order of Ancients. So this is the coolest part where they brought it into lore. And again, it parallels real life beautifully, where King Alfred's thing in real life was reformation and structure building and organization. And what's Alfred's main role in the game is behind the scenes taking down the Order of Ancients, this really old order that dates back to almost Odyssey, right? With the cult of Cosmos is this Order of Ancients, this early precursor to the Templars. And so it's older than him. It's wild. It's bigger than him. It's completely out of his control. So he takes it down from the inside and eventually founds the Templar Order. So his in-game philosophy is Alfred believes that humanity is flawed and dangerous. Freedom leads to chaos. Strong order guided by divine will is necessary. So he often uses his religion in order to justify his control and his order and to basically define what he believes is the correct way to live. The Order of Ancients became corrupt and self-serving, and he didn't like that. So instead of ruling through them, he destroys the order and replaces it with something stricter, more disciplined, more obedient to faith and to structure. And he aligns himself ideologically against the Assassins, which are absolute freedom, and the Order of Ancients, which represent some unchecked power. He wants controlled order, not domination. And this is extremely, extremely accurate to his real life personality and things like that. He was not some big fighting warrior king as many were back then. A lot of kings. King Ecbert was a big, I know, he was his grandfather. I'm not researching this. I remember this from a show I watched. Ecbert was this big warrior king. There were plenty of warrior kings. He was not one of them. In fact, he was sick. He was a very sick person. He had some medical conditions and all this other stuff. So the way they depict him in the game as like this skinny, unathletic looking kind of decrepit young man. He's really in like his 30s and 40s, but looks ill the whole time and working in the shadows and behind the scenes and putting up all these structures in order to gain control is all extremely accurate. And I think it's really cool. Most media portrays him as like a shining defender of England and like the stereotypical king with the big beard and the big crown, and he's more built in most media, whereas Valhalla, according to this source, Valhalla gets it quite right into what it actually was. And where Assassins represent freedom, Templars represent order, Alfred bridges between belief and control and controlling through structure and order. So, fascinating character. I love the way he's working behind the scenes the whole time and sneaking around and getting Eivor to do his like bidding without him really realizing it, taking down the Order of the Ancients so that Eivor's like, great, the Order of the Ancients are done. Good luck with your life, Mr. Alfred, sir. I'm done here. And Alfred says, great, now I'm free to set up this brand new order in which I can have total control over. And starts the Templar Order. It's such a interesting character to be the focal point for this. Like, I mean, when we had Origins and Odyssey, we know we're not dealing with Assassins and Templars by definition. We're getting there with the hidden ones that are founded in Origins and stuff like that. And you have this Order of Ancients that keeps coming up. And then in most of Valhalla, at the entire Valhalla, you're like, we're still doing Order of Ancients, but like Altair in like 100 years is fighting the Templar Order with the Assassins. So this has to all change at some point. And they chose King Alfred to reform the whole thing and build a new structure for it. And again, they chose the right guy, and the way that they write somebody real and they depict somebody accurately and make it work into the lore, I think is really, really cool. So coolest antagonist, in my opinion. I'm obsessed with the way that they portray him. I think he's really cool.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I mean, he's honestly like a good version of Emperor Palpatine a little bit, where he's playing both sides. He is the master strategist. He is getting his goals and his vision done by utilizing both sides of the chessboard to fulfill his own goals. Which, at first when you figure out that it's King Alfred is the head Templar, you're like, okay, that's pretty predictable, whatever, blah, blah. But you have no idea that he's also this, this soldier in Christ guy who's been writing you letters this whole time and using you like a pawn to take out all of the Order of Ancients. Because like you said, he is not a strong man. And he wants to maintain his image as this, as this holy, righteous king of England. And if he's getting his hands dirty, going and killing or hiring like public assassins or hitmen to go and take out all of these people who, a lot of them had a lot of political power on both sides, that you don't want to be trying to play both sides and then have them realize and then turn on you, right? That is the last thing that you want. So he's utilizing the assassins and the Vikings and the Anglo-Saxon and the Templars and everyone to do his bidding. And then in the end, when he reveals himself, he's no longer an enemy to Eivor. He's not. Eivor does not kill King Alfred, obviously, because it wouldn't be historically accurate. But besides that, they have a really cool scene. I'm a little bugged still to this day that it wasn't included in the main game. It came out in a DLC 1 year later. I say DLC because it was just like an add-on. Like the end of Valhalla came out 1 year later. But they have a conversation where he talks to Eivor about like, yeah, things needed to change. I was the leader of the Order of the Ancients, but my own, it's something that I adopted. It was flawed, and it was, there's a better way of doing it. So you helped me get rid of the old, and now I'm going to implement the new. And I don't remember, does he actually invite Eivor to help him, or I can't remember.
Boy, that's been a minute too. I think so. He's not rude to him or anything.
No,
like
it's
that.
a very friendly conversation, and Eivor's just kind of like, okay, cool, peace.
Yeah,
like,
peace.
I'm not an assassin. I have nothing against you, so yeah, I'll let you do your thing. And that's where he creates the Templar Order, which if you think about the Templars early on and the Templars in history, they were first and foremost Christians. They were these Christian Templars where they have the big red cross on their chest, and everything is for the name of Christ, and everything is for Christianity and the spreading of the gospel and all that. And you see that evolve over time, not only in real history, but specifically in the game. You see these Templar leaders being, very Christian, to using that as a front in later games to then using that not at all. And so you see this shift happen where it's no longer order for peace sake, it's order for power sake. And you're seeing these later Templars, not King Alfred. King Alfred didn't care about power, he cared about peace and order, whereas later they care about power. And you see a lot of this unfold in Assassin's Creed Unity, which I hate Assassin's Creed Unity, but props to some of the story there, where you've got the Assassins Brotherhood, which has come too far gone from what they started as, what the main goal of the Assassins was. And same with the Templars. You have, what's his name?
In Unity?
Yes, who's the main bad guy in Unity?
Oh, Germain.
Yeah, Germain.
Yeah.
You got me there. We made it all the way there. But yeah, you have Germain, and you have I'm forgetting everything. Arno's master. What's his name?
Oh, God, damn it. Oh, jeez.
We're gonna get cooked in chat. Are you guys even Assassin's Creed creators?
It's 1:30. It's 1:30 in the morning. Give me a break.
It is 1:30 in the morning for Johnny. But anyways, those two guys are both doing the same thing, where they are realizing that their orders have gone way too far from what they should have been at the start, the Templars and the Assassins, and they try to do, they take drastic measures to rebuild things. Both of them are punished for doing so, but both of them were correct.
Wait, you're talking about Belek?
Belek.
Yes. Okay.
So Germain and Belek did have the right idea. I don't think Germain was doing it for Christianity at all. So he kind of didn't have the right idea, but Belek definitely had the right idea. And I will die on that hill. Maybe we'll do a podcast episode about how Belek is really the hero and Arno's the effing villain of that game.
Yes.
But yeah, so you see those themes later on where you see that the intentions of what King Alfred set up eventually expired and became abused because they just want power.
Right. Exactly. Which is why I think it's interesting that in history, he's not really a villain. And in the game, he kind of helps you with your goal, which is essentially take down the Order of Ancients. And he and like I said earlier, like the concept of a Templar isn't inherently evil. It's when they go for power, like you said, that turns them into these evil, terrible bad guys. And it's a more corrupt version of what Alfred was building. He wanted to build this order that he could control, that he believed would help rule and bring the right way to live to people, which in his definition was order and not freedom. But that's their real differences there. But it is interesting how you have a more well-meaning Templar who was depicted in history as not a bad guy. He was a hero in a lot of ways, Alfred was, and yet they chose to make him a Templar because of his obsession with control and order. And I think it's fascinating. I think he is the most interesting antagonist in the series. So,
yeah,
guys,
we need to see more stories like that told without it being a Romeo-Juliet story.
Yeah, I agree.
But
Yes.
anyways.
Yes.
Well,
right,
that was great. I hope you guys liked
great.
this episode. We are going to be doing more history-based episodes. I had a lot of fun, and I liked learning about the 5 that you had. I liked your niche picks that you had.
I had fun, too. This was a blast. I mean, it's over 2 hours now, and I loved hearing about... I'm glad you did more of them, like ones that people will know and care about, because I'm sure people will go, oh, who the hell is Johnny talking about now in hour number 2? So this will be, it's good. I think we had a good mix, but it's fascinating. I love doing the research for it. Like that moment when I saw that, like, oh, this guy Hattori Hanzo is from Iga and he led this like little guerrilla group of ninjas. I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, that's so cool. When they do it right, man, this stuff hits. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. It is extremely late, and this was far long enough, so I think we should just wrap this up here. But, Bubba, any last words here before we go?
Leave in the comments specifically what history-type episodes you'd like to see us talk about and research and share with you guys. If you guys have some good ideas, I'm sure you guys do. Leave it in the comments what you guys want to see. And if you have any other fun facts about other people in history that are in the games that people may not know, put them in there. I want to see them. I want to see comments like that.
Me too.
So.
Me too. All right, guys. Oh, last thing. Beneath the Hood is now on Spotify. It's on the AC Johnny YouTube channel, and we are moving over to a dedicated Beneath the Hood YouTube channel. It's on all 3 of those. You guys can check it out wherever you want. But Spotify, I think video is on Spotify as well. So if you want to watch it or just listen to it, they're both over there. But yes, we have its own dedicated YouTube channel, and you can always find it on my channel as well. So guys, thank you so much for watching. We're having a blast. 2 weeks. We're sticking to it. We're going to do this thing every 2 weeks. We're here. We're doing this thing. So Bubba, a pleasure as always. I love you. And everybody else, thank you so much for watching, and take care.
Bye.